Week 9. They have not spent a whole lot of time in the red zone. Off the boot, Sanders connects with Fenton for the touchdown. The Cleveland Browns drive it right down the field and strike first. Buffalo. Handoff. Cook gets around 3 defenders and then kicks it to another gear. Cook still going. Looking for the angle. Touchdown. Wow. Tremendous. Shotgun. Sanders pump and throw. It's popped up in the air and it's a gift. Interception. Pick made by Jordan Poyer, the former Cleveland Brown. He told us that this season has felt like a movie. First and goal. Allen on a give. And it's Ty Johnson walking it in for the touchdown. A workmanlike handoff to Cook. Trying to get there, extends his arm. He's in. Touchdown, Buffalo. The effort by Cook, you see it week in and week out. Just trying to do the little. Take the handoff. Sanders once again deflected, and it's intercepted. Daquan Jones comes away with it. Joey Bosa getting a piece.
Boy, you gotta love it. You gotta love it. Not much second half highlights because really that was the story of the game. Just missed opportunities for the Browns in the whole night. Welcome to the show. I'm Anthony Alford. Eli Moon is next to me. And our third wheel, Rob Rozycki, our captain, our fearless leader of this program, he is on assignment. He's actually on boyfriend duty watching a ballet.
Yeah.
It's so funny because he missed the greatest ending to a Steelers game of all time.
Yeah, Double A, crazy. First off, happy Sunday to you, my bro. And we'll get into all the highlights of that game we just saw with the Browns and Bills. But yeah, just talk about Rozycki. I mean, I try to get him to do like a vlog, or something. Say we can get like a recap of like your experience. And he said there's no phones allowed at the ballet. So we are rocking and rolling, me and you, and usually when it's just me and you on a show, we can get off the wheels a little bit,
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
When it's just Eli and I, and it was true 10 years ago, it's true now. There's no rundown.
Nope.
This is just the train is going to be off the train tracks. It starts off the train tracks, and it just rolls from there.
Yeah. No, but you're right though, Double A. I mean, he did miss a great game, and I mean, we were sitting here watching it. Me and Papa Moon, we're sitting here. He made some phenomenal chili. On a side note, had some great chili. So shout out Papa Moon. But we're sitting here watching, and I mean, we were in our pregame meeting here. So we're all three watching, and I just couldn't believe it, man. What a wacky end of the game, and for such a pivotal game for both those teams. Lions 8-6, Steelers 8-6. Really, the only path for the Steelers, really, it seems more than likely in the AFC North, is winning that division. The Lions. Now, at this point, after this, we'll see what happens. But this was such a pivotal game, and we kind of got robbed, in my opinion, of the greatest walk-off touchdown, or at least one of them, probably of all time. But clearly pass interference on Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, so we'll play Gene Steratore explaining what happened at the end of the game because it was stunning. To be perfectly honest, if you tuned away from Steelers Lions because it was a bore fest in the first 3 quarters, I completely understand. But it got crazy in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
you had the wild play at the end, what turned into an offensive pass interference. And let's play it for you real quick, and we will react to the Browns, and we got the full all that stuff. Cavs, Dan Gilbert might be making news here shortly, so we got all that coming up. But first, let's play what Gene Steratore had to say about that offensive pass interference and what happened, courtesy of CBS.
The ruling on the field is a touchdown. However, pass interference, number 14 on the offense. By rule, that penalty is not enforced, and there is no replay. The game is over. There is no touchdown.
Whoa!
The OPI on number 14 negates the penalty. There is no replay. The game is over.
The OPI ends it. They even conceded, Gene, that Goff had scored a touchdown. As bizarre as it gets.
Yeah, 100%. In the NFL, offensive fouls with time expired do not extend. I was looking to see, and they may have been discussing whether there was progress on St. Brown and whether there was time, but once Carl Shepard said the ruling was touchdown, we knew that time had expired. You see the OPI by St. Brown there. And as I said, the game was at 0 whenever Goff scored, so that is end of game. You don't extend on offensive penalties with zeros on the clock.
You know, the players are still standing on the field. The Lions players are looking up at the big board, watching the replay over and over again, and incredulous, trying to figure out what just happened. How about the effort right there, by the way, and the presence of mind for Goff to fly into the end zone.
Crazy. Just crazy. I mean, first off, Jared Goff taking flight like that for a play that doesn't count is just insane. But on a serious note, AA, I feel like I learned something new about the NFL every single day. It's like going to school on Sunday. And, we went to school Monday through Friday growing up, but it's like going back to school sometimes and learning. And it makes sense, I guess, offensive play. So why would they get another chance if they had the penalty? But, I guess, at least me, I've never really seen something like this, especially at the end of a game. The broadcast, they had hinted at maybe is this more controversial? We'll talk more NFL, in the roundtable, but is this more controversial than the 2-point conversion that happened earlier this week? So just a lot of crazy stuff, AA. I guess, my thoughts, too, are where do the Lions go from here? Because you have, and that's something, we'll talk about in the roundtable, but where do they go from here? You had a team that was literally Super Bowl bound, basically. And now you lose your offensive coordinator. He's in Chicago smiling, and it's getting crazy.
I think that's the lesson of, I can't stand when people say, oh, this team wasn't supposed to win a championship in this particular season. You just never know. You never know. We can have that discussion all day with our baseball team, with the Guardians. You just never know. When you're in the dance, when you're in the playoffs, you got to come through because the following season, things happen. You could have a critical injury. Things can slow down. Coaches leave and things can change.
Right. So
Detroit is in a real bit of trouble. And the Steelers hate them. It's like that. They're like that cockroach that just sticks around. It's go away. And they're in the driver's seat now due to that crazy finish. They're in the driver's seat to win the division again.
Yeah, and then we'll see what Baltimore does, tonight, obviously against New England. It seems like they kind of started off a little hot there. We'll see what happens, but yeah, ultimately it's Pittsburgh's division to lose. And we'll see how they write their story this time, but just crazy. Who would have thought, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, do you think Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin would work out and, maybe have a chance to run for a Super Bowl together? Dude, lay off Ayahuasca, all right? Dude, okay? But I'm sure we'll talk a lot about the NFL AA. We got a lot of NFC, AFC stuff, but we would be remiss if we didn't talk about our home team, the Cleveland Browns.
We wouldn't be remiss.
Well, obviously the Browns, for those of us tuning in just now, and thank you for tuning in here on the main event, Inside Edge Network, we saw the Browns come up short against the Buffalo Bills, and I got to be honest, I just am so upset, and I'm not upset about the game anymore, AA. I got upset about the game for a moment because it would have been nice, again, to see this young offense get a W against, I've kind of said before on this show, the Buffalo Bills are very susceptible, and I think they're fool's gold when it comes to playoff time. I still think that. James Cook just decided to run, he was like, it's like a knife through whatever the saying. You guys get it back there. He was just running through our defense. At the end of the day, James Cook was cooking us, and that's just what it is. But I will say this. Ultimately, I'm just so upset because of the news of Quinshon Judkins, and that's where my heart really is at tonight. As far as a Browns fan, it's not. We're 3-12. Okay, so if we win 2 more games, we're actually hurting ourselves right now. And I could actually say that. Now, 4 or 5 weeks ago, I'd be like, okay, let's win some football games. Now we are hurting ourselves. If we go out there and try to win the next 2 against your professionals, you should go out there and try. But, if you don't, whatever. I'm just upset because now it looks like running back is now a glaring need again after we just addressed it with Judkins.
Yeah, well, what's interesting too, and we'll get more information about Judkins, of course, but the various reports, best case scenario, 4 to 5 month, recovery and all that stuff, but who knows at this point. But we were talking before the game, Eli, about the quarterback room, about the Browns quarterback room going into 2026, because you are right. With all the things that has happened today, the big news for the Browns is Tennessee beating Kansas City, demolishing Kansas City.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but I think it's close. If the Browns lose out, they lose to the Steelers and Bengals next week, they will have at least the 2 spot locked in for the NFL draft. So that you have, if you want a quarterback, the spot is there for the taking. I'm not saying do it, but the spot is there for the taking, Eli. But I just wanted to say, like, the quarterback room right now,
Yeah.
in 2026, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and Deshaun Watson. That's your QB room right now in 2026. Do you feel good about that quarterback room?
I do, as far as the starter. If Shedeur is your starter heading into 2026, I feel good about the starter. But there's nothing protecting the Browns at quarterback after that. We have seen, and I don't think this is necessarily the show, like this episode is the show to really express the Deshaun Watson stuff in terms of on the field. But I just think we've seen that. We have seen the Deshaun Watson play. You can credit to a bunch of different things. He hasn't really been able to get consistent injuries, a coach, whatever. It hasn't worked. For whatever reason you'd like to make up or say or whatever, not UAA, but there's masses out there that would just love for this thing to work, it isn't working. And I believe the definition of insanity is just doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same result. So that I don't, and we see Dylan Gabriel. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody was happy when Shedeur went out with the pinky injury, like his whole pinky nail, I believe, like pulled off, of the finger. So,
Dude,
not fun.
I was eating when they showed the injury. I was eating.
Oh no. Yeah, dude, oof. But obviously he's a gamer, you know what I'm saying? It would have maybe took Eli Moon out for a quarter, but Shedeur not so much. But you saw when Dylan Gabriel, I mean, the fans are just not with it, bro. And that's whether he, it's justified or it's not justified, the fans are not with it. And, we have something brewing here with Shedeur. I get it. You're going to look at the stats. Anybody, box score watching is going to see 20 of 29, 157 passing yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. What they won't see is the first interception bounced off Judkins' hands or his chest and goes up in the air and gets picked off. So, I mean, I get it. That's the NFL. It's going to be put on Shedeur. But I think there's a lot as far as Sanders' improvement that I'm excited about in 26. If that is the case, this is the quarterback room that you just posed to me, Watson, Sanders, and Gabriel. But after that, I don't know. I was even telling you earlier, AA, I would not be surprised, and I know I was talking about Mendoza, I would not be surprised if the Browns looked at Dante Moore too. I don't think it's the right move, but especially after you just posed to me that question with that quarterback room, you don't know if Watson's even going to play another snap for the Browns. Me personally, I don't want him to, but you may not have him play another snap. We don't know. Like, he was injured last year. He's been recovering the whole year. That's, what's been going on. And Dylan Gabriel, like I said, nice guy, seems cool, just not cutting it as an NFL quarterback, at least not here. And that's what it comes down to. So I would not be surprised if the Browns look at that number 2 overall pick, if that is what they land or whatever, and look at a Dante Moore. If a Mendoza, somehow they can move up. I mean, I just want to put it past them. I don't know if it's the right move, because I think Shedeur is giving you enough gamer mentality and showing you improvement. Maybe, like I said, not the prettiest stat lines, but it is improvement. And they were close to upsetting the Buffalo Bills. I mean, this, not that we pay too much attention to Vegas. This was a 10.5 spread game going into today, and the Browns were close to winning it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they covered Buffalo. Right. I'll say, if you want game analysis, I'll say the defense, our elite defense, I think made some business decisions.
Yeah.
With James Cook, there were some linebackers who creeped up a little bit too far up to the line of scrimmage. There was safeties who basically was out of position and didn't want to make tackles, or DBs, I should say. So that's my game analysis for this.
Yeah.
It was Shedeur. He's the one guy we've been waiting all these years to, like, all right, who can a good head coach, who can a good offensive staff look at and say, I can build an offense around this kid. Mm-hmm. You can build an offense around Shedeur. Yes, there are coachable things that you have to work on with Shedeur. Yes, you can't hold on to the football too long. If you do, they're going to string you out, and that's going to be a problem. And that was a problem in the preseason, and that has to be corrected. But Shedeur proved today he is willing to make smart check down decisions. If the Bills' defense was dropping back, which they were, Shedeur also proved that, hey, even in a collapsing pocket, that doesn't mean the play's over.
Right.
He's going to find a way to escape the pocket and make something out of nothing. But it's also proven that I say this. I think it would be a terrible idea to draft a quarterback at that 2 spot. I think it would be terrible. The roster, Eli, offensively is so poor that you need an offensive line upgrade. You definitely need upgrades at the receiving position. Definitely. I mean, imagine if you had a legitimate number 1 wide receiver instead of Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, I'm 1,000% with you, Doubly. And Carnell Tate would look great in orange and brown, or brown and orange. But at the end of the day, I'm not thinking as far as what me and you would think, right? Because I agree with you. They should look at receiver. They should look at lineman. And now, after today's news, should definitely at least look at running back, whether it's free agency or one of the first few rounds of the draft. However, the Cleveland Browns have never been prone, or, against, rather, drafting a quarterback in the first round. Okay, so that's just where I'm at. The only reason I could see it is because, okay, if they do clean house, because we don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to clean house completely? Stefanski, Barry? Is it Stefanski? Is it Barry? What is it going to be? I could just see the new regime wanting to just draft their guy. We talk about it all the time, but just drafting their guy. They get a chance. They have the number 2 overall pick. It's a great position to be in. They're going to draft their guy and then address those other positions the way they do. Is that the greatest idea? I don't think so, because I think you have a guy in Shedeur Sanders that you, like you said, we can build on. You need to get him help. I mean, he's got his tight end. We definitely know that. He's got his tight end in Harold Fannin, but we need help. And now, like I said, with the news of Judkins out today, he's going to need a lot more help offensively, because the running back committee isn't gonna cut it. So
yeah, the one thing I'll say to your point, we always used to joke in radio. What does a program director do first thing? They change the format clock. They hire their host. They change the format clock. Yeah. So I could definitely see the general manager, and you can maneuver things. And again, we'll have months to talk about what to do with the draft. But like, you can maneuver things if you like. Hey, if a GM does come in, or even they say in the interviews, if they have it, that, you know what, we should keep our options open at quarterback. I mean, should we listen to that? Because again, because you kind of have, for me, I'm still pretending like Deshaun Watson's not here.
Yeah, I'm with you.
He is. And Dylan Gabriel is a non-factor. So it's really whether or not you believe in building a franchise around Shedeur Sanders, or, to your point, Eli, maybe starting fresh or bringing in a rookie quarterback at the top of the draft may be the better course of action if you're the new general manager.
Yeah, and we're going to see a lot of stuff shake up, Doubly. I mean, I'm not saying Dan Lanning's out of Oregon. That's crazy. But you see college coaches move with their guy, all the time, or move to the NFL level. Going to be a lot of shake-up. College football playoffs happening, obviously, as well right now. So we'll see how some of these outcomes happen. See, who maybe somebody gets happy feet, sees the Browns' position as an opportunity, and just saying a Dan Lanning bringing Dante Moore to Cleveland. I know it sounds far fetched, and I don't necessarily want it for all those listening, but I'm just saying I wouldn't put it past the Browns to go out and try to get a combo and get another young quarterback. As tiring as it is, I think that's, and now you keep hearing all the stuff come out, at least me, I've been seeing it all over social media. Dante Moore is from East Cleveland or grew up in East Cleveland. And I mean, they're starting to draw more and more ties. And, Dante Moore looked, we'll talk about Oregon a little bit later on, but Dante Moore looked all right. I mean, granted, it was against James Madison, all due respect, but looked all right. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see. It's just a lot of change that's going to happen. We just don't know what type of change. Is it a full cleaning of the staff? And, does that come with a whole new plan at quarterback, or are we going to just try to keep the ball rolling on what we have established?
That's a good point. We did not include in our opening montage another special teams blunder at the end of the first half. It's just, honestly, I could have pulled a clip from last week or the week before or the week before that.
This would be the point where Rozycki would be like, can Bubba Ventrone just not have a job in Cleveland anymore? That's where Rozycki would say that point. So
he's not wrong.
But he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
And I think all of us are on the understanding of what this is. This is, you're playing out the string. I would not be surprised when we're on the air after the Week 18 Sunday afternoon games, where all the news for our team breaks.
Yeah.
And we've been seeing the reports this week in Rappaport. I think the amazing thing, Kevin, the narrative that I found crazy. Kevin Stefanski would be the hottest coach in the coaching market if he's let go by the Browns. That is insane to me, considering he's only won 6 games in the last 2 years. That is insane to me.
Right. Yeah, I just don't get it. I don't know where those reports are getting their sources or where it's all stemming from, but I don't get it. I mean, clearly they haven't watched football in Cleveland the last 2 years. And like we've talked about with Kevin Stefanski, he's a quarterback guru, except for he's never been able to figure out the quarterback position here. And now he actually has a guy in Shedeur Sanders that he wanted the red shirt earlier in the year. It was supposed to be a red shirt year. Reports had come out, I believe, earlier, about that. But now the talk is, in Cleveland, Shedeur Sanders might give you an opportunity to keep your job and give you an opportunity to go into next year. And you've done everything you can, at least in my opinion. This is allegedly. I can't sit there and say, but allegedly, it sure looks like you've done everything you can to put him in a position to not succeed, to not win this job for 2026. Which for a dude we keep talking about has put his 2 weeks in for the Browns. It's frustrating, but I don't buy it, man. There is going to be so many candidates that come out that Kevin Stefanski, in my opinion, will be lucky to get an offensive coordinator job in the NFL. It's just, you got to look at it. I mean, that's where I'm at with it. Unless you're, one of these coaches that came from a very heralded coaching tree. And I know Stefanski, I think, came from the Zimmer tree, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
But it's not the Belichick tree. It's not the Reed tree. It's not those guys. So you don't have that extra backing of coming from that aura. So I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
And I mentioned, too, on our pregame show, I said, well, we're treating him like Tony Dungy back in the day, Andy Reid back in the day. They both were Coach of the Year winners for the Buccaneers and for the Eagles. Both guys, playoff success, but that's where it ends, all right? It's like, would you ever put Kevin Stefanski in the same class as Tony Dungy and Andy Reid? No. Why are we treating him? And you know what? Maybe Kevin Stefanski's camp, they have a great team, and I need to hire them myself. Maybe they make themselves look good, but there's no way that narrative should exist. And Andrew Berry can go too. I mean, what to me, I know we had this question earlier in the year. Are they, is it a package deal or not? One good rookie draft class does not make up for the fact that you drafted Jet Wills. Does not make up for the fact that you drafted Anthony Schwartz. It doesn't make up for the terrible draft picks that you've had the first 5 years of your tenure. And to see the reports that Andrew Berry could be heavily involved in the search for the next head coach and the transition of the Cleveland Browns, I think it's honestly, it's not a hot take. It's a terrible move. Terrible move.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's just the Browns getting in their way again. Just if you're gonna decide to get rid of Stefanski, in my opinion, and I think obviously in yours as well, and Rob's kind of talked about it here and there on the show as well, I just think it needs to be a clean sweep. I mean, because you're not getting anything done. You're prolonging the issue because to your point, Double A, for every good draft he's had, Andrew Berry's had 5 bad ones. So, I'm not a math major, but you take 1 out of 6, that's not a very high percentage. So,
and honestly, I think both the head coaching job and the general manager job here is probably the best jobs available across the football spectrum. I really do.
It's one of them. It's one of them. I know we've talked about it, I think last week a little bit more about this, I think obviously having a top 10 pick, which is what it's going to be, and having a second first rounder, having an opportunity. You don't know, we'll see how these coaches, these potential new coach for the Cleveland Browns view Shedeur Sanders in the quarterback room, but I would tend to think that a lot of coaches are going to say, okay, I have somebody in Shedeur Sanders I can work with, and he could be the franchise quarterback. So I can hear that, Double A. But on top of that, you also are now walking into a room that now needs another running back, a go-to running back. You still have to figure out the wide receiver room. You still have to figure out just a plethora of things, special teams which is crazy to talk about, but you have to figure out certain positions on special teams because they can't even get that done. So that's what's fearsome. As far as saying this is the most attractive or second most attractive job. I think it's not the worst. I don't think it's, I think it's on the better side of attractive jobs, but I think there are going to be some coaches that look at the Browns and go, why would I go here when I already have a lot more established here and I could just go in and plug and play and go. And so that's why I think the Browns might get burnt and they might be standing at the altar for their first, second, third choice this offseason.
I think you have to sell. Honestly, if there's an offensive coach out there who heavily believes in Shedeur Sanders, I think that's your pitch.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I truly agree with you. You know what I'm saying? And I know that's not good for a show where we're usually supposed to debate with each other, but I don't disagree. What else do you have going on? Like I said, we posed a question of Dante Moore. Fernando Mendoza's gone. He's number 1. Vegas is taking, if Vegas gets number 1, Vegas is taking Fernando Mendoza. Okay?
Yes.
That's it's almost as comfortable as a lock as I'd say all year. Is something I was confident in. But I would not be shocked if, like I said, they talk about Dante Moore. But if you are a coach that sees the potential in Shedeur Sanders, and yes, Double A, this is potentially the best job in the offseason because all you got to do is build around him, and at least you got a chance. They put up 20 points today. They lost their starting running back, and again, they have no receivers. I mean, they're starting to step up just a tad, so now they're below average. They're not just terrible.
Exactly. So, again, from the game itself, whatever. And listen, I know there's a lot of fans. I'm around older fans who cannot wait for the Browns to face the Steelers next week. Every Sunday we always go in with the mindset, got to get the W, got to get the W, got to get the W. And I hate to say this too, based on everything that we just laid out, do not be surprised either. And people are going to hate what I'm about to say here, maybe myself included. Don't be surprised if the Browns trade back in the draft either.
I wouldn't be shocked, especially if they're not going quarterback.
Especially if they don't go quarterback. You're exactly right.
I mean, I would love to see Carnell Tate obviously be the pick, but the Browns are going to look at it. It seems to be a decently strong receiver class. Obviously, Jalen Tyson's brother, Cavaliers, his brother's at Arizona State, one of the top prospects at receiver. But it'll be interesting. I think the Browns, like you said, they've done it before, so I won't be shocked. I will not be sitting there in April like, wow, they did it. Because if it does accumulate some more picks in the second round or whatever, then I'm okay with it. Because I don't think we need to go full rebuild. We're kind of already at that point without saying it. Now it's just accumulating picks and trying to regroup and go forward. So love the Cleveland Browns though. I love them so much. They just make my Sundays so happy. Yeah, right. Exactly, Double A. Exactly. What was that? Some water? Was that water?
Sure.
Okay, word.
Matter of fact, is anything good going on here in Cleveland, sports-wise? Anything? Anything?
Yeah. Well, the Guardians haven't made a move.
Is somebody winning like their adult dodgeball league or something? Anything? Nothing?
I'm trying to think. Has Kyle won any tennis matches recently?
Nah, he's in the off season, I think, till February.
That's what I thought. Okay, so
yeah,
I mean,
we don't got that either.
All right, no,
we have nothing. In fact, we got Chris Fedor on the Line and Go podcast. We know this from history with the Cavaliers. Anytime Dan Gilbert's unhappy, that means some stuff about to go down. Take a look at this clip from Chris Fedor.
2 sources with knowledge of the situation, very close to the situation, say that Dan Gilbert is very unhappy about what is going on. He turns on the games and he hears boos 4 times in the last 5 home games, turns on games and sees the Cavs trailing by double digits again, sees the Cavs leading for 1 minute in the second half of these games, and he's paying a huge luxury tax bill. It's the highest payroll in the NBA. It's the only team in the second apron. He's willing to do that when he thinks the team has a chance to win a championship, when he believes in the group that he has. But it's not that early anymore. We're about, 35 to 37% of the season done? When you see this 29 games in, you start asking questions if you're the guy in charge of everything with this organization.
Yeah, Double A, we hinted at it, and we've talked about it when we have talked Cavs here, early ramp up of the season. But as Chris Fedor said, we're about 35 to 37% of the season in, and that's an eye opener. I don't know where they would make a move. I guess where I'll break the ice on this one, but something's got to be done. Yeah, I mean, just something's got to be done because Garland, I've talked about him on the show. I don't think he's a productive enough, consistent enough production at the point guard position. And when we do need him, he's unfortunately not healthy for games when we need him to step up in the playoffs. And it can't fall on Donovan and the backcourt. And one of the selling points for Donovan was he's going to come here with the guy that we chose, Garland or Sexton. And we chose Darius Garland over Colin Sexton, the Cavs did. And it's been fun at times, but it's not fun sitting there in May when you're getting bounced by the Indiana Pacers and Darius Garland's nursing another injury and struggling. Jared Allen, he's been a great fit for what we've needed, which is getting this team back into playoff contention and establishing a culture. And I'd love to keep Jared Allen, but you know what? Throwing him into a trade with Darius Garland, whoever else, would definitely sweeten the pot in a deal. A lot of teams need a starting center right now. So I just think you got to look at those guys. And if not, what else are you doing? Because, yes, Max Strus is eventually going to come back from it. He's coming back from injury. They're getting Merrill back. They're getting these guys back that do the 3-and-D. Add those little sparks. They have Tyson stepping up the first-round pick. But, my question to you, Double A, as long-winded as it is where do they make a move?
I think they got to find a way. We always talk about, stars being marketable. Can you make that push? The easy answer is there a market for Darius Garland and Jared Allen? Right. That's the easy answer. The easy question, I should say. Is there a market for Darius Garland and Jared Allen that you can move off of? And here's the wild card of all this. This is why Dan Gilbert and what Chris Fedor mentioned on that Line and Go podcast is very important. For a Cavs team, and I just pulled up the standings because we're around Christmas, so now we can look at stuff like this.
Yeah.
The Cavs right now, they're the 7th seed at this moment. They have dropped 7 of their last 10. For whatever reason, they can't beat Chicago. So, and they'll leave for 2 seconds in the second half after being down double digits. To your question, there's the Dan Gilbert factor. Because Kobe Altman doesn't want to do any of this. No. Kobe Altman and, the front office, they chose the core four. Remember the whole sales pitch on the core four? The core four is growing as a group. We are organically growing the core four. The core four is going to figure things out. The core four is going to win the championship. Dan Gilbert is like the rest of us. He's like the core four. Forget about the core four.
Yeah.
If Dan Gilbert wakes up one day and says, I'm cool on this, I'm done. Move off of Darius, move off of Jared. He'll make that move himself. He will override the Cavaliers front office, who he hired, and make those moves himself.
Right.
That's honestly, we're at a point where you talk about the second apron. We're at a point where Dan Gilbert has said, hey, I'm willing to put a great team together, but if you're not giving me results, I will make major moves right now. Now, middle of January. We were together 10 years ago. David Blatt, one of the best record in the NBA. Things ain't going right. Bye-bye.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
And let's be real here. At the end of the day, we've talked about the second apron. We've talked about these different things, that could limit the Cavaliers or other NBA teams from making these moves. And yes, to Chris Fedor's point, the Cavaliers have the highest payroll in the NBA. So it's going to be a little tricky. But I'm sorry. We are talking about professional front office members, general manager. I'm sure we can figure out a way to make things work if there isn't a move that needs to be made. Again, I know the second apron didn't exist at that time, but this front office made the move for Donovan Mitchell, pulled the trigger to get rid of Markkanen and multiple firsts. So I think they can figure it out. The other thing I want to just bring up, AA, is I truly am starting to get concerned that we could be wasting Donovan Mitchell's prime. Like, we talk about, what moves are to be made, the core four, and they're growing organically together, except for the one thing is Donovan Mitchell, the star of that, is 29 years old, and next September, he'll be 30. So the start of next season is his 30-year-old season. So there has to be some sort of emphasis by the Cavaliers front office, and if it doesn't come from them, it's got to come from Dan Gilbert. And it will. Like you said, it will. What it looks like, we don't know. Could it be a rash decision that doesn't work out? Possibly. Could it be something that actually does get the ball rolling and breaks up this core four? I think that is the move that's going to have to be made to make any sort of progress towards a championship, because they're just not. It's not clicking right now. Whether it's because injuries and the Cavaliers have had time where multiple guys have been out, and then they come back, other guys are out, whatever. I get it. But at the end of the day, you guys have played for multiple years now together, so you guys should be able to navigate through some of these games. And the other night when Mobley and Spida was out, it was bad. Real bad.
And they're soft.
Yeah.
They're soft.
And we were saying this 3 years ago.
We said it 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago.
Yeah.
And now they're soft.
Yeah.
So I don't even see a world. Let me ask you this. Do you see a world where the core four wins an NBA title?
No, because I don't believe in Darius Garland. That's the biggest thing. And I know I keep centering it on him, but Jared Allen is respectfully, he is the role player of the core four. He is there because he is established in the starting lineup and he does his role very well. The Cavaliers are banking on, and they know Donovan's a superstar, but they are banking on Garland and or Mobley to become at least stars. And I get we're very tough on this show on Evan Mobley, because he only has a Defensive Player of the Year. But Evan Mobley, I believe, is the one I would focus on keeping here in Cleveland, because he still has accolades that are pretty notable in the NBA and has shown that I can be a star. And Garland, I just think at this point, and it's unfortunate, but he's damaged goods and he's getting older. He's not old, but he's getting older. And the Cavs may have missed out on the top value for him, but they can maybe still make a move. This also comes to, another thing, AA, is obviously, we thought the Lonzo Ball experiment was going to work out. At least I did. Thought it was going to work out a lot better. Hasn't been the most ideal. And you start looking at, maybe the Cavaliers should have looked at Ty Jerome. Maybe keeping Ty Jerome here. Like I talked about last.
You're seeing his Ty Jerome is missed here.
Yeah, and I talked about it last week. He was close with Donovan. He's a good friend of his. At least that's what they make it out to be. So I'd imagine so. And I think we're missing him, and some of the guys we have made moves for just aren't getting it done. DeAndre Hunter, love him, but he's been one of the worst defenders on our team the last couple of games here in this stretch. And we brought him in because he was going to be a guy who can bring some instant offense here and there, but he's really going to lock down the defensive side of the game. He's just got a better offensive side of the ball as opposed to former Cavalier Isaac Okoro. So that's where I'm at. To answer your question, I've been very long-winded tonight, but I don't think the core four can win a championship. I think majority of it can. I think, or at least half of it can. And if I were to choose the two I'd keep, it'd be Mobley and it'd be Donovan Mitchell.
Well, that's the thing, though. It's like, I think the two to keep is clear. Yeah. But the problem is now there's not a market for Garland. I think there's a market for Jared Allen, but for Garland, for what was expected and what I believe the Cavs, in a world if they would trade him, what they would expect back, it won't be for what they want.
No, I mean, and I know this is going to upset Rob because he's not here to defend himself and defend this, but they're going to have to look at Jalen Tyson and ask him what city he would prefer to play in, or whoever they're talking to, because respectfully, he's going to have to go. I mean, if the Cavs want to make any move, Jalen Tyson is evolving. His second-year player looks really promising, and for a team that's going to more than likely get off a star, because that's what the Cavs got to do. They got to go out and get a star. Whether it's Giannis and you figure it out, you crunch the numbers, you make it work, Brandon Ingram, whoever it is, it's going to cost Jalen Tyson because of what we've already brought up, AA, that Darius Garland's value is dropping by the day. And so teams are going to want somebody that doesn't have an injury history, is starting to evolve, has a good scoring game, is just a dog on the defensive side of the floor. May not be the greatest defender, but he's a dog, and I'll take that on defense. Please give me some effort. So that's what it's going to take. It really might be a package of Tyson and Allen. And maybe, I don't know. I don't know anymore with this team. I don't know. I mean, we were literally talking about this is the year. No Jason Tatum, no Tyrese Halliburton. All these guys are out for these teams, yet Boston still looks cool. Indiana.
Detroit.
Detroit, like and it's crazy because who's Detroit's who's Detroit's coach, AA?
That would be Mr. JB Bickerstaff.
Right. Now, and I'm not saying it was a bad move to bring Atkins in because I don't want everybody trying to find where I live and come roast me for Atkinson takes. I think Atkins is a great coach, but we made a big deal was JB Bickerstaff was a great developmental coach, but that's it. Detroit is smoking teams right now. They don't look like they're just a developmental team. They look like they could come out of the Eastern Conference this year. So I just don't understand, I don't know. I haven't had this moment with the Cavaliers in a long time where I'm sitting there looking at some of these past moves and did they make the right moves? I think Atkinson's been great, but they've still in the same spot they were pretty much with Bickerstaff. Great, you got a round further. You are still basically in the same position you were with JB Bickerstaff and the core four. Now it's just Kenny Atkinson in the core four and a few different, pieces as role players. And that's concerning. That's concerning because I'll tell you this, AA. JB Bickerstaff and the Pistons come out of the Eastern Conference this year and the Cavs don't make it out of the first round or right now, the way it's looking, they don't make the playoffs. Ooh, we might be looking at that and just wondering we should have been maybe looking at other areas instead of the coaching.
You see, the sad thing, though, I don't even think Dan Gilbert's going to let it get that far. I think the target date, ironically, is Christmas Day. Cavaliers face the Knicks.
Yeah.
Big noon. Sorry, wrong sport. But 12 o'clock, Christmas. So after you get your gifts or, whatever, Cavaliers are going to be on TV.
Yeah.
If they don't look good at Madison Square Garden, if the lights are too bright, as Jared Allen has said before multiple times, if they don't look good in front of a national television audience, there are some people who have not watched the Cavaliers this season or who has only watched 2 or 3 games.
Right.
Past this year. If they look like trash against the Knicks, do not be surprised if after the holiday season, Dan Gilbert steps in and makes those moves.
Right.
He's gonna do something.
He's gonna have to, AA, because right now the way we're sitting, if we just sit here and do nothing, me and you, we'll have to figure out something else to talk about in April. And May.
Definitely. We're going to have to do something because that will be a problem. All right, let's break. When we come back, we got the roundtable for both the NFL, which we have seen a ton of big moves, especially in the NFC. We got a lot of things to talk about from both conferences, but also from the college football playoff. We heard an analyst, and we'll see if we can get the video in during the break here. We heard an analyst say that maybe the group of five, James Madison, Tulane, maybe they should have their own playoff instead of being involved in the college football playoff, because quite simply, they didn't look good at all. 2 blowouts with James Madison and Tulane yesterday. So we're going to talk about that. We got our matchup set. Ohio State's going to face Miami, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But we do have the roundtable for both the NFL and college football coming up on the other side. And then later on, we're going to revisit a piece from The Athletic. They did a piece before the season. They do every year. Mike Sando does a great job. They poll NFL coaches and executives of the tier quarterbacks going into the season. How have they done this year? So we'll talk about all that coming up, plus a lot of other fun stuff. Oh, Jake Paul got knocked out. We'll talk about that.
Oh, man.
He faced a real fighter and got a real boxing result.
Hey, FAFO. And figure it out during the break for those that can't figure it out right now.
Eli Moose here. I'm AA Anthony Alford. Rob is on assignment, being a good boyfriend to his lovely lady. So he could make this show today because he would have got beat down if he would have did the show today before Christmas. So I understand.
That would have been the main event. That would
have been a knockout punch, the real one. But that's worth money. And we need a Patreon for that. All right, we'll take a quick break, come back in just a moment. This is the main event on the Inside Edge Sports Podcasting Network. Back in a moment.
On the fake, Williams looking downfield, launching downfield, going for it all. It is caught. Bears win it. DJ Moore.
Man, my goodness, crazy Saturday night with NFL action. Welcome back, main event. Anthony Alford, Eli Moon here with you. Rob Rozycki on assignment. And I got to tell you, I think Eli, you have to unmute your microphone. There, I wish I could do it on my end, but I can't.
Well, Double A, I was just, I was being polite and letting you get your intro in before I chimed in, But as you were elegantly saying, yes, a lot of crazy stuff. And man, do I maybe need to believe in the Chicago Bears.
Well, and there's not much AFC movement, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but we'll start with the NFC. We'll give you the updated standings here right now.
There it is right there. All right, go ahead.
It was crazy. You might be like, man, what are those letters next to the teams and stuff? The X means that those teams have qualified for the playoffs. The Z, which is next to Philadelphia, they have clinched the NFC East.
Yeah.
So that division is locked up. But let's start. First off, crazy Thursday night game with the Rams and Seahawks, and then crazy Saturday night game with the Packers and Bears.
Yeah.
And I think you led off by saying maybe I should be a believer of what, the Bears?
Yeah, because they were done, Double A. They were done. The Packers had them, mind you, with their backup quarterback, Malik Willis, who at one point, when Eli Moon did draft him very highly in fantasy football. But, they were doing the thing, man. The Packers had them, and then all of a sudden they didn't. And this is something that I haven't seen out of the Bears. A team that just pulled it out. Like, just didn't say no, didn't give up. It really looked bad at times. It was a very stagnant offensive game for most of the game. I mean, I looked at Pops at one point and said, geez, can somebody just run or catch a ball? Like, my goodness. But it got interesting, and if you stuck around for the end of it, you saw Caleb Williams probably throw one of the prettiest darts this season. I mean, incredible. And that is some of the stuff that I have to look at when looking at the playoffs. If a team's down 7, 10, 14, whatever, can they come back from a deficit? And yes, granted, it was at home in Chicago, but still, that's a big win for the Bears. And it puts them in a spot where, they could compete still for that number one seed, if I'm not mistaken. They could still lock up that first round bye. But as you talked about, Double A, Seattle is making it tough too. And I don't want to take away the focus from Chicago here for a moment. I know we want to talk about the Bears, but Seattle's making it interesting too. We are literally talking about two quarterbacks and two teams. Think about this: Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold. Think about the offseason, and we're going to talk about it later on in the show. But think about the offseason thoughts of Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold. And now think about it, that they are the number 1 and number 2 seeds in the NFC.
That's huge. Yeah. That's huge. And real quick, just on the Bears front, and you're seeing, and we could say the same thing about Carolina and Tampa. The way the NFL has done the scheduling, we talked about this. This is about as close to a best of 3 series that you're going to get in football, because man, they faced each other a couple weeks ago. Chicago, the Browns had Chicago last week.
Yeah.
So if you ever had a situation where best of 3, the second matchup should be more of a defensive battle, and that's exactly what happened. And what's funny, if this holds, round 3 is coming in the playoffs, in the wild card. And Caleb Williams talked about it in this interview with Fox. Like, round 3 could be on its way. But Seattle's an interesting case because, to your point, Eli, Sam Darnold, to add on to what you have mentioned, and listen, I am not a Sam Darnold believer in big games. I'm just not. But he won. Seattle won. And Sam Darnold, for what, the second year in a row, has double-digit wins.
Yes.
And he's going to lead his team into the playoffs. And I think in the case of Seattle, out of all the teams that are in contention for the top seed in the NFC, I think Seattle's the one that needs it the most. I think the less exposure that Sam Darnold has to the playoffs, the more it's going to help Seattle, as opposed to some of these other teams like Chicago. I think Chicago could make a little bit of a run. Obviously, I'm still very fond of the Rams, but definitely Seattle. That's the team that I honestly believe Eli desperately needs the number one seed.
Yeah, and you're not going to get too many arguments out of me on that one, AA, because I do agree. Sam Darnold at one point in his career was caught on national television saying he was seeing ghosts, and we thought that was the end of his career. So I think keeping him out of that national spotlight, keeping him away from it, as stupid as that sounds, because eventually if he wants to win the Super Bowl, he is going to be the only nationally televised game in the NFL at one point. But I think just making it as easy as possible on Sam Darnold. This is what, his second playoff run, because his first one came last year with Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like, as a starter. So this is still fairly something new territory to him, and it's a completely new environment. Last year he was playing a playoff game with Minnesota. Now he's playing with Seattle, so it's crazy. I agree with you on that. I will say this too. Another thing, just while we're talking about this NFC, because we talked about the top two teams, and I'm going to be honest. Here's my take on it. I think that is how it's going to stay the final 2 weeks. That's my take on it. Before we dive into the other few teams here, I think Seattle and Chicago, there might be a movement between those two, but I think that's 1 and 2 right now, AA, and it's crazy because you look at a team that's in the 5th spot right now, the graphic below us, with Los Angeles Rams. We were asking the question last week, who can stop the Rams? Who can stop the Rams? Well, who would have thought it's in their own division? Crazy.
We got our answer.
Yeah, crazy. And that's another thing, AA. I think this Puka Nacua stuff is going to be big. I don't want to get into, a whole segment of Puka Nacua. I mean, if you haven't been living under a rock, you've seen that he's been in the news for quite a bit on the field and off the field. Had a great game Thursday night against Seattle, though they didn't get the victory. He had over 200 receiving yards, I think 225 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, just went off. But obviously he has some stuff, questionable off the field. And I don't know if you saw, any of the post-game comments from McVay and Stafford, but the staff, they're like blindsided by this. They're asking about, because Puka talked, I'm going to collect myself here. Puka, another thing he did was the text, or the tweet after the game about the referees. Mm-hmm. And they're asking Sean McVay and they're asking Matthew Stafford, hey, what about this tweet? What about that? What about this? And these guys are like, dude, we're just trying to win a football game, and he looked all right on the field. I don't think it affects his on the field, clearly. Puka Nacua had the best receiving performance this week. However, we're going to keep an eye on this, and I think we should at least, and see what the NFL does, because we're getting awfully close to the playoffs, and the NFL is not opposed to suspending big-time players. And especially with stuff like this, when the NFL, and rightfully so, preaches against, to end hate, and they're against hate, and they're against that type of bullshit, and I've been pretty good not swearing, but I think that one deserves it.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if we start hearing, is Puka Nacua potentially getting a game suspension, and the Rams could have some drama at receiver, just like Philadelphia has had all year.
Yeah, that's a great point you bring up, and I'm sure when Rob's back next week, I'm sure we'll dive more into the news side of things with that, because that's probably when it will all unfold.
Right.
Of course, with he was fined, it looked like $25,000 for his referee criticism.
Right.
And that's, you got a clean record and be fined $25K. And when you talk about the officials, but on top of the news stuff, and you're right, the timing of that will be everything. And I'm sure we'll cover that more next week and the week after. So that's huge. San Francisco, by the way, they have the Colts tomorrow. They should win that. The Niners, there is a path. where the Niners could be the number 1 seed if they went out, and winning out would include beating Seattle in Week 18.
And I would not put it past Kyle Shanahan and that team. We talked about it last week. As we're ramping up towards the playoffs, San Francisco, they just know how to get it done. Shanahan knows how to get it done, and he's done it with Purdy, he's done it with Mac Jones this year. I really don't think it matters who's at quarterback to truly be honest. As long as Christian McCaffrey's healthy and those guys around him are healthy, Kittle and McCaffrey more so on offense, I think they're going to be okay. The Niners just have that pedigree and have had for since Shanahan's been there. We're going to win. We're going to figure it out. We're going to win. Is it going to be pretty every time? No, but we're going to win. And yeah, they're standing in the 6th seed. I get it. They're not a top team, quote unquote, but look at their record. They play in the toughest division in the NFC right now. Any other division, they'd be leading right now, if I'm not mistaken, or at least tied for the division lead. So, yeah, I think San Francisco could make a run. I still think Seattle hangs on. I think they do. But watch out for San Francisco, especially a team like Philadelphia. And I know they've had, they tuned Vegas up a few weeks ago, and, they've had some just questionable weeks here. They run into a team like San Francisco where the only drama coming out of San Francisco is where's Brandon Ayuk, who's on injured reserve. So really, to be honest, you heard Shanahan, it doesn't bother him. They tried reaching out, whatever. I'm going to leave that out to the Bay. They can take care of that. But there's no drama. So, that's what I'm going to look for a lot in the playoffs too. It's weird because I feel like there's more drama with a lot of these playoff teams than maybe the last few years. Whether it's off the field, on the field, somebody's not catching the ball enough, whatever. I just feel like there's so much drama right now, and I think the teams that are keeping it in-house and keeping their calm and cool, composure, that's going to be the teams that make it far. You don't hear any noise out of Seattle right now. You don't hear any noise out of Chicago right now. You don't hear any noise out of Carolina and San Francisco. And I'd say Green Bay as well. But the big discussion with Green Bay is their quarterback going to be healthy enough to be able to lead a playoff run, and can he get it done? And really, who's going to step out there? So that's the thing with Green Bay, but not too much drama. That's what it's going to be, though. Who's keeping it close knit and not letting the BS of everything else stop? So that's why I don't believe in Philadelphia. I don't believe in the Rams, even though last week we were singing their praises. I don't know with all this starting to unravel at the end of the year. It reminds me of the Pittsburgh Steelers when they were undefeated back in 2020. And those are the big ones. I don't trust Philly and I don't trust the Rams.
Well, we always talked about these playoffs, especially now that Kansas City's officially eliminated. This is wide open. This across the board. This will be probably. I have not looked forward to the playoffs this much in a long time.
Yeah,
because any of these teams could do some damage in the playoffs. I do want to mention one team that we brought up earlier in the show to open that probably will not make it. It's going to be slim pickings. They're not officially eliminated yet. It will depend on Green Bay. In fact, Green Bay losing to Chicago has kept the door open for Detroit.
Right.
And with Detroit not being able to close the deal this afternoon, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but the Lions right now 8-7, they're the AFC seed. Green Bay 9-5-1. So if you want to look at it from a tiebreaker standpoint, they're really 9.5 wins, 5.5 losses, but also Green Bay, if I'm not mistaken, they have a tiebreaker over Detroit.
Correct. Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. Detroit really needed that game today, AA. We talked about it a little bit at the Open. They really, really needed that game. And it's just insane to think about that, we keep talking about the Bears. The Bears are sitting in that same spot Detroit was in a year ago. And Ben Johnson's the man. And Dan Campbell is now going to have some questions this offseason. He took over play calling. And the season's not over. So let me not write the obituary for the Detroit Lions because they still have a chance to get in there. However, it's looking bleak. And if it does continue this way, there's going to be questions for Dan Campbell taking over the play calling. And look, dude, you had majority, if not your entire offense. I know Laporta went out for a certain part of the year, trying to incorporate Jameson Williams. But you had pretty much everybody back. What happened? You lost your coordinators, and that was the sauce. That was the juice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mind-boggling. what's happened to the Detroit Lions. Just crazy. I didn't think we'd be sitting here talking about an 8-6, now 8-7 team that's going to possibly and more than likely miss the playoffs.
I got to step away from the computer for 2 seconds because I'm going to pull up a graphic. I got to download it because it's about Baker Mayfield.
Yes, please do.
Carolina. Oh, man, I feel bad because we were talking about Baker Mayfield as an MVP candidate. That interception at the end of the game. I'm going to pull up a graphic, but talk a little bit about Carolina and Tampa Bay, Eli. Go ahead.
Yes, I would love to. Carolina, first off, I would like to say this was a surprise, but we've been hinting at it here on the show for weeks that Carolina has really been making noise. A very young, up-and-coming team. Dave Canales and that roster really just not taking no for an answer. They were wrote off early in the year. They started stringing together some wins. We were like, okay, that's nice. Carolina is at least a competitive football team, but, we're not taking them seriously. And now we're staring at them as, the division leader, not winner, but division leader as of right now of the NFC South, which is crazy. You look at this game, obviously, as Double A alluded to, they played earlier today, and bad interception by Baker Mayfield at the end of the game. 23-20, the Carolina Panthers win, and Baker Mayfield, 18-26, 145 passing yards, a touchdown, a pick, sacked twice. He also had 4 carries for 49 rushing yards, Double A. But I believe the first half he had 41 passing yards. He did have a touchdown, but 41 passing yards, 7-10. I get it, but I'm checking here, just making sure I'm not tripping. Emeka Egbuka. Oh my goodness, I almost had a Gronk moment. Emeka Egbuka.
No, man, because it's like now you got to say how he says it. It's like you got that in your mind, man. It's crazy.
Emeka Egbuka, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, all in the game today. Jalen McMillan actually back as well. He was back last week. But, Tez Johnson. There's no excuse. Bucky Irving's there. Rashad White's there. Mm-hmm. You are the healthiest you've been since the beginning of the season. And this is the game. Okay, we can excuse you having a bad game against a tougher team. I hate saying tougher because you're trying to be a tougher team too. But,
right.
But Tampa Bay hasn't proven that. So when you're playing these upper echelon teams, then we can be like, well, maybe they'll be ready later in the year. But now you're just not going to win the division. And now it goes from, okay, like, are we going to get to the NFC Championship to can we beat Carolina week 18 and maybe get into the playoffs? Because that's what it's turning into, Double A. And I just got to praise Carolina. That's what I was going to say when you stepped away here for a moment. I just got to praise Carolina because they've been great, man. I mean, they literally just have not taken no for an answer. I don't know if Bryce Young is going to be an elite quarterback. If we talk about him in 5 years about elite, but I think he'll be sticking around, and I think he's going to be a guy that's serviceable. And he has a playoffs. As of right now, if he can hold on the next 2 weeks, he'll have a chance to make a story in the playoffs just like every other quarterback on this graphic.
I have to shout out Ben Axelrod because he retweeted something from the 2020 season. I'm going to show it to you and see if it applies here today.
All right. Well, let me see.
Let me remove the banner here.
Yes. All right. So the Baker Mayfield cycle. We are here. Play like shit. Then we'll be criticized by media. Underdog mentality. Beat inferior opponent. Call out doubters. Play like shit. Double A, you make me feel all bad. I love Baker, man. So but it has to be mentioned. I mean, like I said, I don't understand really what went wrong. I mean, besides the fact that Baker's just not showing up against divisional opponents now too, and you're in a division that, like, those are games that other divisions are like, yay, we don't have to play our opponents in our own division. We get to play Carolina, we get to play New Orleans, we get to play these teams. This is bad for Baker. This is bad for Todd Bowles. This is bad for the Buccaneers because we talked about it, Double A, when Atlanta and Kyle Pitts and the Falcons just went nuclear. And we talked about.
I think Kyle Pitts every single day for his performance last week.
Well, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, before we end this segment. But we'll talk about what we got going on in the old football world. But I will say this: we talked about it last week. We said, Todd Bowles, did he lose the locker room? And in his reports
yes.
And exactly.
Yes, my answer is yes. When you. I don't mind doing a press conference and being yourself. That's what you're supposed to do in most cases. But when you're dropping multiple F-bombs and stuff in a press conference after a regular season game, That tells me his message is not resonating with the team. And that tells me that little things that are usually in-house, to your point a few minutes ago, Eli, about who's going into the playoffs with the least amount of drama, that tells me that him saying stuff like that in public means that it's been bad in that locker room for the last month or two.
Yeah, and in reports, I looking just around trying to get an idea of the vibe in Tampa Bay. They were, he said, she said, whatever, but that seemed like Todd Bowles was starting to lose the locker room. And yeah, like you said, having an expletive-filled press conference like that just shows the state of the Buccaneers. And now this week further, just proves that point of where they're at. I mean, like I said, they were fully healthy today. No reason for them to lose this game. You could say it was in Carolina. I get it. Sorry. Carolina isn't much different weather-wise than Tampa Bay. Sorry. I'm just going to be real with you. We live in Ohio. So if you were saying you came to Ohio and played a game, okay, different. But there's really no excuse for it. You're playing against a guy this is Bryce Young's first opportunity to be like, hey, I'm a player in this league. Like, I'm going to get some opportunity. He's hungry. And we didn't see that hunger out of Baker Mayfield today that we us as Browns fans, we loved it when he was here, the hunger. And we said, and when he left, and he got back on his feet in Tampa Bay, we said that chip on his shoulder is going to be the reason he does it. But right now, I just don't know how hungry is Baker Mayfield. And that's not me calling him out, but that's just me asking.
It should be. No. It should be. It should be. Because if Baker's just motivated by people doubting him,
right,
then you got to show up. And I don't hear people anymore talking about, oh, Carolina once had Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold in the same locker room. Oh, that conversation's gone because Carolina in their front office, they did their job. Yep. They got a better quarterback. They went younger with quarterback and picked the right guy. They got big receivers. So they're doing the right things down there in Carolina. Their defense is better. So they're doing the right things. And this is inexcusable with Tampa Bay. And really, to be perfectly honest, Carolina blew a game last week that they should have won. So if they would have handled business last week and then won again this week, I'm looking at it right now. They're 8-7. Tampa's 7-8. Carolina would have been 9-6. And then, so here is the other issue. If you look at the schedule, Carolina next week hosts Seattle. So Tampa still has a chance. Definitely. They still have a chance. I'm looking.
But let's just be real. Go ahead. I was going to say not to discredit your point. But
Tampa has Miami next Sunday.
Okay, not to discredit your point, Double A. Let's not discredit the Carolina Panthers though. You just mentioned their defense, and I guess Seattle's got a high-powered offense. This Carolina defense has made some offenses kind of question themselves at different points in the game. So I mean, all I'm saying is, we talked about the Chicago Bears, and I think I've hit my quota for how many times I can say the word Chicago Bears in a segment. If the Carolina Panthers beat the Seattle Seahawks next week, we might have to be having a serious conversation about the Carolina Panthers. Throw the record out the window because it doesn't matter right now. They've got to the point where they're division leader. They are going to potentially win their division. They're going to host a playoff game. So I don't care about 8, 7 losses, whatever. What I want to see is who's rolling with the most momentum right now is going to be in the playoffs. And Carolina's in a position where they have momentum. They could potentially win the division, host a playoff game. And if they beat Seattle, man, I don't know, man. It could get really, really interesting.
Yeah, that would be big. Definitely a lot of stuff going on with the NFC. Very exciting stuff. Now, on the AFC side, not much changes per se, but there were some big results with the AFC. Of course, right now, the Patriots and Ravens, they are at halftime tied at 10-all between those two teams. But obviously, we talked about the Steelers hanging on to beat the Detroit Lions. How about Denver? Jacksonville. That could be a playoff matchup. It could be. But Jacksonville, who, by the way, has Cleveland's first-round pick,
Yeah, yeah, and they did it. They did the trade for Travis Hunter, and they're doing all this without Travis Hunter.
Mm,
Oh,
mm, mm.
dude,
I have to imagine all the stuff that's happening in Jacksonville is just fake. What a win, by the way, in Denver for Jacksonville, and Trevor Lawrence putting in work today.
Yeah, I mean, incredible. And it's something to be just said. We just talked about Tampa Bay right before we pivot to the AFC. Well, Liam Cohn, a coordinator in Tampa Bay, comes over. He's offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. He comes over to Jacksonville. Hits that cringeworthy Duval press. I probably just botched it too, but his was pretty bad too. And
I think he did that correctly, but it was cringeworthy.
Yeah, and he does that, and everybody's like, "Oh, this guy won't last even a year or two," And here he is, Jacksonville knocking at the door, letting Denver know today, the number 1 seed in the AFC. Hey, just because you have it right now doesn't mean we're worried about you. And I think it could get really, really interesting. This is the Trevor Lawrence, to your point, Double A, that we were expecting out of Clemson. When he got into the league, we thought he was just going to take the world over by storm. He's had Urban Meyer in his way, other things in his way since, and he just hasn't been able to really put it together himself. So, take accountability for himself there, but he's done it so far this year. He's had some moments. He's had, that crazy fall down, run, get back up, run it into the end zone, win the game. He's had some moments, man. Today was a moment. This Denver defense is for real. Let's not, I don't want today's outcome and the score to make people think that Denver's defense isn't what it is. No, this is just more of a testament that Jacksonville's offense, it may not have the flashy names, but they just inked Jacoby Myers to an extension. They've got him at the trade deadline. They have Travis Etienne, who they made sure to pair with Lawrence, his college teammate, when they drafted the two. They have made some moves, and that's a testament to Jacksonville. This isn't a discredit to Denver, because I think they will regroup. They have veteran leadership. They have Sean Payton. They're going to be able to bounce something, a loss like this off of their shoulders. But Jacksonville's coming in hot, and we just talked about the NFC. I'm looking for who's coming in hot, and right now, it's the Jaguars.
Jacksonville has won 6 straight games.
Yeah,
they have. I didn't even realize it, that they have won 6 straight games. They've won 7 of the last 8. Like, this team, and I'm to point out some of the W's in this little stretch. Mm-hmm. The Chargers, who are also hot, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The Chargers, Arizona, with suddenly fantasy football's hottest quarterback at Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
Arizona is the funniest case, because Arizona is never on national television, so none of us really knows how they're actually performing, what Jacoby Brissett actually looks like in terms of real football. But fantasy-wise, he's QB1 in almost every statistical category. Nuts. It's like Josh Allen, Drake May, and Jacoby Brissett. Explain that.
Dude, it's crazy, bro. It's crazy. Real quick, just to go back here just for a moment, Double A, because me and you, we can get derailed real quick, and then we'll end up talking about pro wrestling, and
let me say this real quick.
Yes.
On the street. So they beat the Chargers.
Yes.
Jacoby Brissett. The Colts, when they needed that W, and the Colts were starting to get that little turn down.
Yeah.
And then they put up 48 against the Jets. I know it's the Jets, but they did 48 points is 48 points.
Yeah.
And then, of course, today, the Denver Broncos. Go ahead, Eli.
You are all good. No, and I appreciate you sharing that info. I just think it's crazy to think just of like how hot this Jacksonville team is, like the way they're playing. It's crazy to think that you look at the graphic and they would play Buffalo right now in Jacksonville if the season ended today, and the playoffs, or if the playoffs, season ended, playoffs started today. And I've been standing up here on my my judge's throne or whatever, and I've been hitting the gavel, and I've been saying the Bills are not for real, and that is a case closed. And I'm telling you, the Bills do not want to see Jacksonville. If I'm the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, and this is the year there's no Patrick Mahomes, maybe no Lamar Jackson, no Joe Burrow, you don't have to worry about any of that. Except for you might have to worry about Trevor Lawrence and this hungry Jacksonville team. The last time Jacksonville really made some noise in the playoffs, they had a young team. I mean, Blake Bortles was, somewhat young. I think he was like mid-20s, as a quarterback, in his prime. But, they had those young guys around him. Jalen Ramsey, coming out in the fur coat after they beat, some teams on the way to the AFC Championship. And I kind of got this swagger from this Jacksonville team, rather. Like, they're not necessarily all in your face, but they just beat you up and they have fun doing it. They're smiling still. They're like the new kids on the block. And that's a difference, I think, between them, Denver, and New England. Because they're just having fun. When I watch Jacksonville, they are having fun. Not saying the other two teams aren't having fun winning, but Denver, we've talked about them. They're so hard-pressed to get offense going on early that they have to play catch-up, and it's worked out until it hasn't, like today. New England, there's just something about, I know everybody is so in love with New England right now, and the Vrabel and Drake May, and MVP discussions. I just think they play too tight. I think when it comes down to it,
did that Buffalo loss last week hurt your case for New England in your eyes?
Yeah, I think, you're talking about taking back the AFC East from Buffalo, and granted, they still have the division lead, but we'll see how this game ends tonight and how it looks going into the last 2 weeks of the season. I just think New England's just, like I said, they just look like they're good. They just look like they're playing too tight, and I think they let their foot off the gas last week, clearly against Buffalo. And who's to say they don't do it against a team again? New England, just to tie it together, would play Houston if, the season ended today, playoffs started. And I think Houston's good too, man. I mean, I know they survived a scare from Vegas, but Houston's good, man. And I think New England, Buffalo, some of the, these teams, we talk about like making a run, could really have a short playoff run.
Matchups are going to be everything. I think especially here in
more
the
than
AFC,
11. Yeah.
Yeah, I think exactly. I think especially in the AFC where there are so many newbies.
Yeah.
So many newbies. Buffalo has proven they can beat New England.
Mm-hmm.
Can Buffalo go into Jacksonville and get a W? I don't know. That could be your first round wild card game. And it would be as it stands right now. So there's little things like that. I don't know what happens if the Chargers and Bills flip spots. How different are things going to be from that standpoint? Pittsburgh and Baltimore, it's a lot of things. Pittsburgh, and we talked a little bit about them earlier. They're interesting because we always talk about the Steelers nationally are more regarded nationally than they are by their own fans. Their own fans, and I don't think I'm speaking out of pocket, even though Rob's not here. I'm pretty sure if Rob was able to see the game, which he couldn't because he's watching a dance recital. But I'm sure he would not be happy about how this game turned out, even though they won. So I don't get a good read on the Steelers, even though Aaron Rodgers is under center for you. Maybe I'm looking at the Steelers more positively than their own fans.
Yeah, I mean, AA, it is by the grace of Aaron Rodgers right now in Pittsburgh. He is making it happen. And that's really what it is. And DK Metcalf is doing his thing too. We could talk about DK Metcalf and some other things he had going on today.
Yeah, that's the other thing. He's going to miss some time.
Oh, 1,000%. And for those, I mean, we won't dive too much into it. This other stuff's got to come out. But he had an altercation with a Detroit Lions fan during the game. And AA is doing a really good job of if you're only listening to the audio, you're driving in your car or something, AA is giving a good breakdown. So come back and watch the video. about at this point of the video, all right? Come back and watch us. But stay here because I'm going to tell you some important things about Pittsburgh. One, they aren't going to win this division. And today they were saved by the bell, saved by the referees. Now, granted, it was the right call. Like I said at the beginning of the show, Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of my favorite players in the league. He pushed off. It was clear. Clear as day. But they got saved by the bell, AA, because if that doesn't happen, I mean, who knows what the play looks like, but if, whatever clean play, that is a touchdown and all stands, we're having a way bigger discussion about this Baltimore-New England game. And I think that's what I'm keeping an eye on. Like Baltimore 7-7, hanging around with New England right now. Game's still going on. I'm sure we'll have a final close to when we're done here. But I think Baltimore still wins this division. I still do. I just think Lamar Jackson. We keep talking about Josh Allen, and we keep talking about he realizes this is the year that Patrick Mahomes isn't in there, that there is an open field. I mean, I just can't believe there's a world where Lamar Jackson doesn't get a shot at this too. And maybe that's just optimism. I'm not a Baltimore fan. I live in Cleveland. I love the Cleveland Browns. But I just, as somebody who does like watching Lamar Jackson play football, I just can't, I just can't see a playoffs without him. So I guess until there is a playoffs without him, I don't imagine it. So I just think Baltimore, they're going to get there. Now, to your point, though, AA, 19 seasons in a row that Mike Tomlin has not had a losing record as the Steelers head coach. And right now they are in that position. But I guess I'd fall on the side of kind of like the Pittsburgh fans, but I'm here in Cleveland. I'm not sold on them. I'm not. I think they are winning in the ugliest fashions possible, and I guess just win. But I don't know. I just don't buy them. I don't. We were having a conversation about a division leader in the NFC, a few weeks ago, Tampa Bay, and now we just went over that there's a new leader in there. I think by the end of the next 2 weeks are going to get interesting, and I think Baltimore, depending how this Sunday night game finishes, will win your division.
Yeah, this for Baltimore, this is a must-win tonight.
Yes.
This is a must-win. They got to win tonight. Now, next week or next Saturday, they do have Green Bay. And again, to the point of what's the status of Jordan Love, that kind of thing, that will make it interesting. But tonight, this is the one you got to take. Of course, last check, 10-10 halftime score. So it does get interesting. But I do think as these last couple weeks, again, not a lot of movement. The Colts should technically be eliminated after tomorrow night. They are 8-6. They're the 8th seed or the first team out. That should, with Houston winning today, they're 10-5. Houston's the 7th seed, as you see on the graphics. So unless Phillip Rivers and his healthcare can pull a miracle tomorrow against San Francisco, that should be the end of the road for the Colts tomorrow. And I do want to spend 2 seconds before we move on to the college football thing. Very unfortunate story with the Colts, just overall, because obviously we know the story, Jim Irsay passing away during the offseason. His daughters take over. They were the story of the NFL football season with their crazy start. I think they started, 7-1? 6-1?
Yep.
And they had a few tough games. Obviously, right before Thanksgiving, they blew that fourth quarter lead to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And then Daniel Jones went down, and things have not been the same since. And the Colts, who traded away some draft picks, believing in Daniel Jones, they are real quick. We got some breaking news before we get to the Colts. Lamar Jackson dealing with a back injury, questionable to return.
Well, that completely there goes. If he don't come back tonight, there goes my point. I mean, then Pittsburgh, congratulations, you won the AFC North. But that's big news. I mean, because the Ravens need him in the second half. There's my groundbreaking expert analysis right there. W, you were saying though about the Colts before we dive into some other things. You were mentioning about the story of the year. I mean, who would have thought losing Daniel Jones? I mean, would be the biggest part of the end of your season, because we were talking about Daniel Jones at the Giants, you can't win playoff games with him. The Colts were gearing up to make a playoff run and maybe take Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback into the Super Bowl. And I mean, now we're having a discussion about another year on Jonathan Taylor's legs. He is, only getting older. So eventually you're going to have to start looking. I mean, I hope he has another 4 or 5 years. But you are going to have that discussion eventually, though. And now you start looking at it where, okay, another year on your star running back's legs. That is the focal point of your offense. what are we gonna do? Phillip Rivers, this is the 2-3 games he's gonna have with you, unless you make a playoff run, which right now looking bleak. So unless you're running it back with Daniel Jones when he's back healthy, I mean, what are you doing if you're the Colts? And it does suck. Like to your point, it just sucks because it seemed like they had finally just got the ball rolling again. Like they were, I remember the Colts, and I mean you do too. Colts, Peyton Manning. When you saw that horseshoe, you're like, damn, dude, I don't want to play the Colts, dude. And it was so respected. Then Andrew Luck, and I know he was a little bit more short-lived than Peyton Manning, but he rose hell there too and made some AFC championship games. And Indy had that presence. Like when we talk about the New Englands of the world, we talk about these teams that stand out. We talk about Indy, at least in this last 25 years. And then they had that fall off, and it finally felt like they were getting back there. And we'll have to keep an eye on them in the offseason, barring Phillip Rivers doesn't find the fountain of youth and he doesn't just go off.
He might. And again, if they pull the upset against the Niners tomorrow, different conversation, because we'll kind of have to see where things go. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, James Madison didn't look good at all. Tulane didn't look good at all. I want you guys to ponder this clip as we go to break. Obviously, we'll review preview what's to come with the College Football Playoff and kind of what we saw. And, of course, Ohio State, New Year's Eve. Boy, I can't wait. I got to play big games on New Year's Eve. Why do we got to do this?
I don't know why they try to set the tone for sports fans with New Year's Eve games. Like, come on, man. Either do it a few days before the New Year starts so we have a few days to figure it out, got to collect our composure, or do it the second.
They have tried, Eli, for 10 years to make New Year's Eve a New Year's Eve night, a football night. No.
You know what New Year's Eve is for AA? For me going over to your house, hanging out with all the bros, and having a cup of coffee at 10:30 in the evening. That's what New Year's Eve is for.
I want to show this clip here as we go to break. Champ Bailey, he was on TNT doing a post game after Oregon and James Madison. And he suggested that there's a different way we should highlight the group of five. Think about this as we go to break.
You are a true power forward guy. You're not interested in the group of five.
I am interested, but in a different way. I mean, just to go a little deeper, think about it. They already have levels to this game. There's the FCS and there's the FBS, right? I think they need to create another column. It's the Power Four and the Group of Five. It'll solve all problems because I don't think it's fair to James Madison or Tulane that they're one and done, right? I think that they should have been playing in a tournament with other Group of Five schools. So why in the hell would we want blowouts in the first round of the playoffs? I understand we want Cinderella stories and all this stuff. It's not going to happen in football. It just doesn't happen that way.
The JMU fan bear booed Champ Bailey.
He doesn't love it. But you can be a champion if you play somebody on your level.
Exactly.
All right, welcome back. Anthony Alford, Eli Moon back here with you. Main event. Rob Rozycki is off this week. He'll be back with us next week as we get into the Christmas holiday spirit. All right, 10 minutes from now, we're talking Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua because we got some thoughts.
yeah, we do.
We got some thoughts. We'll show you the knockout 10 minutes from now. Also, what we have learned. And fantasy football update because we have to do it.
yeah. No, I mean we got a lot to talk about AA, but you let it off with. I mean, what we should start with. The weekend has been filled with a lot of football, and would you call Saturday's slate of games football or exhibition football?
Well, if Champ Bailey had anything to say about that, I think you know his answer, courtesy of TNT.
You are a true power forward guy. You're not interested in the group of five.
I am interested, but in a different way. I mean, just to go a little deeper, think about it. They already have levels to this game. There's the FCS and there's the FBS, right? I think they need to create another column. It's the Power Four and the Group of Five. It'll solve all problems because I don't think it's fair to James Madison or Tulane that they're one and done, right? I think that they should have been playing in a tournament with other Group of Five schools. So why in the hell would we want blowouts in the first round of the playoffs? I understand we want Cinderella stories and all this stuff. It's not going to happen in football. It just doesn't happen that way.
The JMU fan bear booed Champ Bailey.
He doesn't love it.
But you can be a champion if you play somebody on your level.
Exactly.
I just, yeah, man. We were rooting for James Madison, me and you both. We were rooting for Tulane, and thank goodness we just rooted for them and we didn't put any, stakes on it because we would have been very upset even more so on Saturday. I don't get it, AA. I don't know how to fix this besides what we've already kind of brought up, the evolution, I should say, of conference championships and conferences and just, the best 12. And, you've talked about the best 24 maybe in the future, but whoever. It's a ranking. Here's all the schools. You can schedule who you want. We'll have a committee still, and we'll decide who's the best. But that's the only way I can see this getting better because I really felt like there was a problem with it when they came out with this playoff bracket, the way they were going to do it. The Group of Five getting their opportunity, but being in a separate bracket. Think about that. When we talk about the ACC or the SEC and the Big Ten, and you talk about these schools and these conferences, we don't say, well, we're going to look at this and this way and this because, they're just, you're good, you get in. And if you're not good, you don't get in. So I don't know. I just think there's got to be a better way to measure this. And now, you have a lot more angry fans out in South Bend that are wondering what a game would have looked like between, I don't know, them and Oregon or however it would have shaken out. I don't know if they would have put them in as a 12 seed, but I don't know who you're bumping, down to put Notre Dame in. So more than likely they're playing Oregon or Ole Miss in the first round. And we're probably talking about, this is speculation, but we're probably talking about a barn burner of a game. Jeremiah Love going off and Dante Moore, 2 draft prospects. And instead, we're talking about, my biggest takeaway of the game was told you in pregame that James Madison almost scored 40 points. And I get it. Oregon, let off the brakes, or off the gas. But I don't know. That's my biggest takeaway is that James Madison at least scored points. Tulane, I think, just forgot to show up against an Ole Miss team that most people were saying, why are they going to get in? They have no coach. Well, Ole Miss is going to make some noise here. So that's my takeaway, AA.
Well, the final of the Oregon-James Madison game was 51-34. James Madison scored 28 of those points in the second half.
Right.
So you do have that. I do think it's interesting. We even talk about this in the high school level. Should private schools have their own playoff, and public schools should have their own playoff. I think it comes with the draw. Now, as long as the 12-team playoff exist. You will have, in terms of inclusion, one group of 5 team that should be in it. It's so happy you had 2. And the ACC kind of screwed it up a little bit. So I think as long as you have the 12-team playoff, things are a little wonky. Because what we are finding with the 12-team playoff is that you almost have the worst of every world, right? It's not the old BCS where it's like, only the top 2 get in, and like you would have the Ohio State Indiana winner, which would have been Indiana, and the SEC winner in the national championship game, and that's it. So you don't have that. You don't have the old 4-team playoff where it's just the best teams are in. But then with the 12-team, it's too small to include every deserving bubble team to get in. So you have this case here tells you that you have the worst of almost every world in the sense, and because it is a group of 5 who lost, I mean, last year there were blowouts in the college football playoff involving the Power 4 schools.
Right.
So let's not act like, it's just, group of 5 don't belong and that's it. I recall, what was it, Tennessee getting demolished by Ohio State? What conference is Tennessee from? So that is it's a tough case. But what happened with James Madison and Tulane is the worst thing that could have happened.
Yeah, 1,000%. Because now it's, you talked about, we got to make everybody happy, AA, and I get it. I'm all about making everybody happy. I want to see a smile on everybody's face, from sea to shining sea. However, are we trying to make everybody happy in the college football playoff? Or are we trying to find out who the best out of the 12 best teams are? Because that's what we're going to have a discussion about. And that's why I think the only way we get to somewhat of a rational and understanding and agreement is by getting rid of the conferences. Conference just have to go away. The conference championship don't matter as much anymore. Georgia won the SEC championship game and they got a first round bye. Oklahoma also got in. Alabama also got in. Ole Miss also got in. So, it's not like you need to win a conference championship anymore to get into the playoffs. So we got to look at that. That's ultimately the college football has to look at that. We have to watch them. Hopefully, figure this out. But that's the only way, AA, because like you said, it is nothing, you said nothing wrong, but however, this is the only point in the show where I'll really truly disagree with you, because I don't give a shit about making people happy when it comes down to a competitive sport. I want to find out who the best team is, and maybe it'll make me happy. My brother, as I've alluded many a times, is a student at Ohio State. So I would love for the Buckeyes to win the national championship this year. But they also have earned it, and they have earned a right to compete for that and deserve it. Notre Dame, and I know I had said I don't have a problem with Alabama getting in over them, because if we're playing by these rules, then that's how it should be. But Notre Dame would have probably made some noise. And I just think we're left playing these what ifs. We say these asterisks. We talk about in the NFL last segment. We talk about if Josh Allen wins the Super Bowl, is there an asterisk by the Bills Super Bowl championship because he didn't go through Mahomes? And I think, there's going to be a lot of people in South Bend, just like there were people in Florida State, a few years ago. And obviously, UCF back in the day raising the banner. But just saying like, hey, well, all the best teams weren't in there. And that's where I think the conference has got to go away, AA, for that to matter. So, to really get it to where we need it to be. Otherwise, get used to it. Get used to 1, maybe 2 good games out of the first 4, and expect 2 blowouts. Expect 5 versus 12 and 6 versus 11 to not be good.
The last point I'll make, and we're showing you here the next round. Ohio State, Miami will be New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. And then the other 3 games, Alabama, Indiana, Oregon, Texas Tech, and Ole Miss and Georgia will be on New Year's Day. Alabama, Indiana, and the Rose Bowl. But the last point here that Champ Bailey made, football and basketball, they are different, right? Like, can you have a situation where, yes, basketball, a Cinderella. one game, you get the hot hand as far as shooting, the 3-pointer, and you're off and running. Like you could have a crazy upset over Virginia and the first seed. We were together, all three of us, us two and Rob. We were together at the Barron Cup one year with Michigan State as the 2 seed. They fell.
Yeah.
Because Middle Tennessee State had the hot shooting hand.
Yeah.
Football is different from the standpoint of you got to be able to physically match up against a top-level team. And I think that's kind of what Champ Bailey was saying. It was like in basketball, no matter what, it's 5 versus 5. Everyone is ultimately kind of the same size. But in football with pads and muscles and things like that, the physicality does make a difference. It shows.
Yeah, and you would hope NIL would help with that a little bit. We see in basketball with BYU and AJ DeBanza, the top prospect. You talk about where he's going to college, to play ball at, and he's playing at BYU right now because they paid up. So you would hope that maybe some of these other schools get an opportunity to bring some of these guys in. But like you said, AA, it's different with basketball. You have 5 on the court, you have 12, 15-man roster, and that's it. Like so, as long as you got some ballers, you'll have a chance. Football, it's a larger roster. We talk all the time. Rob always jokes. Ohio State trots out probably 60 to 70 to 80 players that don't even touch the field that are probably competitive enough if they put them on a field against a James Madison or a Tulane. They might, I'm not saying they would because that's disrespectful, but who just knows? It'd be a game. It'd be a game, and that's where I'm at. That's the only hope is NIL. Can some of these schools offer the bread to bring in a star quarterback or somebody to help shape, but at the end of the day, I don't even know if that's enough.
That is true. And the NIL is interesting too, because, the bigger schools are taking advantage of the NIL, but those are matchups, college football playoff, the group of 5, they don't look good at all. But Ohio State, they didn't play, so they didn't lose. So that's the part that matters from that standpoint. And on we go. You could talk about expansion. I did see a radical idea.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a college commissioner, you would probably be able to do this. I saw somebody throw out, hey, screw it, give me a 32-team playoff. And the 32-team playoff would be multiple auto bids and stuff. So Big Ten, SEC will have 6 auto bids. ACC and the Big 12 will have 4. Notre Dame would get in somehow. And then every group of 5 conference champion would also get in. And I think if you did the math that way, that would get you to 26 auto bids, basically. And then the last 6 will be at large bids.
Yeah, my last point on that, AA, is, but we, you heard Champ Bailey in that clip. Do we want to see more blowouts in the first round? Because we had more teams. Okay, the level of play, across the board is not competitive enough to have that many teams. We're running into the issue with 12 right now. And I know we just talked about Notre Dame, and we could have slotted them in and maybe another team on the outside looking in. BYU maybe this year. But it's not college basketball. We talk about the 2 different sports. It's not college basketball. College basketball, you could have Rhode Island or Long Island State or one of these schools get hot and make a run. But in football, like you said, it's you're lining up mano y mano. And if you don't have the speed and the physicality, you weren't in the weight room all summer, then it's just not happening. So I don't know, man, but I am excited for Texas Tech, Oregon. I will say that. I'm excited for the Buckeyes too, obviously, but that's my other game I'm excited for is the Texas Tech, Oregon game.
Yeah, that's going to be big too. And we joked about that 5th seed, right? If you're the 5 seed, like that could be the best seed to be in the college football playoff in the 12-team format, because you get the worst team in the first round. And then in the second round, you get the worst home team, the 4th seed, in that second in the quarterfinals. So it does get interesting. Let's watch Jake Paul on Netflix. Let's watch.
And even if he does land his best shot at the moment, not that much is going to happen.
And it almost, there's a left hook. Oh, another right hand! Down goes Paul!
6, 7, 8, 9.
Mamma mia! It may have taken a little bit longer than everyone expected, but AJ gets the KO in round 6.
Dude,
Courtesy of Netflix. Jake Paul taking the L against Anthony Joshua in round number 6.
6 rounds is the crazy part, to be honest, that it took 5 rounds for Anthony Joshua to get a hold of Jake Paul enough to just knock him out. But I thought it was riveting for the moment, for what it was. I mean, I was awake and I just happened to know the card was happening, and I was on the phone with one of my buddies, and I said, "What are you up to?" And he's like, "Watching Jake Paul's walking out right now to the Real American." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, And I said, "Okay, I got to turn it on." So I came out here and I watched, I put on the TV, and I watched Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, something I never thought I would say in 2025. But here we are. I don't know where I want to start, Double A. First off, ow, a broken jaw in 2 places hurts. But then I think this looks bad on Anthony Joshua. I just do. And I think it's like, that's the bigger thing. Like, yeah, in the moment, yeah, he knocked out Jake Paul. Everybody's happy because not everybody's a fan of Jake Paul. And, that's cool. Like, that's good. But, like, the expected outcome happened. Anthony Joshua was supposed to knock Jake Paul out. In fact, he probably should have knocked him out a few rounds sooner. Obviously, Jake Paul dove and did double leg takedowns, looking very reminiscent to, my wrestling days. I remember wrestling, and double leg was in that category, in my repertoire. Great form if they were in MMA. But, obviously all the antics, so whatever, chalk it up for what it is. I just think it's a bad look for Anthony Joshua. That's what it is, ultimately, because this guy's being talked about as one of the most feared heavyweights in the world, with Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, these guys that have come up through the ranks and
he called out Tyson Fury after the fight.
Right. And it's like silly. If I'm Tyson Fury, I'm laughing. Like, it's just I just think it's like disrespectful to the sport of boxing, because I went through so many different emotions, Double A. While I'm watching this fight, I'm like, I can't be mad, because first off, I never would pay $60 for a boxing pay-per-view right now in today's, to be honest. But, so I get to watch it for free. So that's cool. And Jake Paul is bringing eyes to some of these guys that, have been legends in combat sports. I get a lot of these guys are MMA guys, Tyron Woodley, Anderson Silva's doing his thing now. They fought in the undercard. I just, even Anthony Joshua, a lot of casuals and people that, they don't know who Anthony Joshua is. Like, just being real. We have an idea who he is because he's a beast. But, to the average person who turned that Jake Paul fight on, there's people that turned that fight on because Jake Paul was fighting, not Anthony Joshua. They just knew somebody bigger than him. And I think that's the good thing, is like, and I try not to give too much good light to Jake Paul just because he's an ass, but that is a good thing. Free fight. You're getting to see one of the most feared heavyweights in the world. A guy who might, have a big fight against, Tyson Fury or whoever coming up here. The bad thing is it took 6 rounds for one of the most feared heavyweights to knock Jake Paul out. And that's the problem. How am I expecting or going to get excited for him to go fight Tyson Fury? Because I think Tyson Fury would pack him back up and send him on his way right now.
Well, a couple things. Anthony Joshua had the 15-month layoff. So that is one thing. And you can tell that first round he was trying. He was trying, and it didn't happen. But the crazy thing, I personally thought Anthony Joshua was in a no-win situation. In terms of how the fight was going to turn out to be. If he does knock him out in the first round, great, you knocked out Jake Paul in round 1. Whoop-de-doo, whatever. But the other factor, you're getting paid by Jake Paul to take this fight. So and your work is MVP Jake Paul Promotions, basically. So are fans paying to see a fight in some way, shape, or form, even if Jake Paul himself is spending half of the fight on his knees, attempting to conduct a wrestling match instead of a fight. So I don't know if Anthony Joshua, because I saw there were moments in those boring early rounds where he could have easily put away Jake Paul, could have easily
right.
And I just think back, Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul. And it's like Floyd Mayweather, all-time greatest boxer or whatever, went undefeated, and he is sparring with Logan Paul. So, like, as Anthony Joshua, I would think he's expected to do the same thing. Show out, entertain for the fans, as opposed to pulling a Mike Tyson and knocking this dude out within 30 seconds of the fight.
Yeah, I mean, for the entertainment side of things, I get what you're saying, but I guess it's who are we trying to entertain? I guess that's the question.
I get too, and the point you make is spot on as well. So that's where, if you are going for the purest boxing fan, Anthony Joshua should have handled business a lot sooner. If you're going for the casuals who really only know Jake Paul. So, and the other thing too, obviously coming into this fight, the massive size difference as well.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Did they were saying after the fight, I cannot remember who, but they were saying after, I want to say it was MVP Promotions. I'm positive. It was somebody after the fight, though. They were talking, Jake's side, they was talking about, hey, it wasn't a skills difference tonight. It was a size difference. If you notice, Anthony Joshua was grabbing on the back of the neck, he said, and, holding on, and he said, so just know that, AA. It was just a size difference. And if they were the same size, maybe that fight turns out differently.
Sure.
Can you play that one more time? Because
sure.
we might not get another Jake Paul fight in a moment here.
Yeah, let's see if it was just a size difference. Look at this.
And even if he does land his best shot at the moment, not that much is going to happen. And it almost, there's a left hook. Down goes Paul.
6, 7, 8, 9.
Mamma mia!
I'll mute myself there. There we go. Listen. Jake Paul had multiple knockdowns. Jake Paul was knocked down multiple times. If it was a regular fighter, that fight would have been over in the 5th round.
Yeah.
He was on spaghetti legs. Eli, what happens when you get connected, when you get hit, and your guard is down? What happens?
Yeah. You usually get knocked out.
Down, you're getting tattooed.
Yeah. And dude, I mean, that is actually the best outcome that could have happened for Jake Paul. Because he got to stand up after, smile, make some moments. Like, it could have turned out a lot worse. Like, on a serious note, it could have turned out a lot worse. I mean, like, don't want to get into that, but who's to say, they said, hey, if you do get a hold of him, just don't put him into a spot where it's like bad. Just give him a love tap, let him know that he's not with the big leagues, and keep on going. And that's that. But it was entertaining. It was entertaining, and it gave me a reason to stay up for another hour and I guess crack open another caffeinated beverage.
Yeah, and again, to the point you made earlier, you didn't have to pay $60 for it, or at this rate, $80 or $90.
Yeah,
It's Netflix being involved with boxing is the one outlet where, you know what, paying $8 a month or however much you're paying for Netflix or password sharing, you will you're getting your money's worth, definitely.
And I will say this, Double, not to interrupt you, but I will say this too. Maybe it was, the more I'm thinking as we're discussing, maybe it was a ploy by Anthony Joshua. He's trying to gear up a big fight with Tyson Fury. He's got all the purist boxing fans are going to watch that fight. But now you might get some casuals. And now this might be one of the biggest boxing fights, pay-per-view revenue-wise, of the year. Obviously we had Bud Crawford, and he just announced his retirement. But Bud Crawford, and you have Canelo in their fight earlier on this year. That was a big fight, the biggest fight of the year in boxing. But, and this probably won't happen this year, obviously, with this just happening. But, 2026, that's probably the marquee fight boxing's trying to get going is Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. And now you might get some extra eyes on it. So, you know what? Maybe AJ, you might know what you're doing, you savvy businessman, you. I just wish you would have knocked him out a little sooner. That's all.
Yeah. Listen, like, he got, and I think to your point, too, more eyes on Anthony Joshua. Again, people watching Anthony Joshua for the first time because he's not behind pay-per-view, not behind a paywall. All right, let's close out the show. What we have learned this week. And Eli, you're up first.
All right, Double A. Well, I learned a very valuable lesson in mathematics this weekend, Double A. What I've learned this weekend is 15, the number 15 is a huge number in fantasy football this week. Probably the most important number. You could look at the 50 points Puka Nacua scored. You could look at all of these games, 31 by Bijan Robinson. I mean, just crazy games. Double A, 15 points between me and you, my friend, in a semifinal matchup. It is absolutely crazy to me, first off, to think that you were thinking of tanking, potentially having the number one pick a few weeks ago when you were looking on the outside looking in. Now we are playing and you were up by 15 points on the verge of your potential first championship appearance. What I've learned is I have George Kittle, Jonathan Taylor, and San Francisco's defense tomorrow. I have taken great care of this championship belt, Double A. For everybody out there, I won the championship last year. And what I understand is to be the man, you got to beat the man, Double A. And I need 16 points tomorrow to get back to the promised land and go reclaim and defend what is mine. So what I've learned this weekend is you've been a very worthy opponent, as much as you are a great brother of mine, family of mine, my bro. But I can't let you take this home. This has to stay with me just another year. So what I've learned this weekend is all eyes on Monday Night Football, Niners, Colts, Eli Moon, Double A, the right to play the winner of Jack John and Ricky.
Yeah. My tanking plan's not going too well this year.
Hey, yeah. You're doing the opposite of it. Oh, man, dude. Crazy, bro. Who would have thought? Who would have thought, like, 15 points, bro? We were talking this week, and I was cocky last week, and I think I even said it on the show. I said, dude, I'm sorry what's about to happen. And, like, I might eat my own words. We'll see. That's what I've learned. What have you learned this weekend, Double A? I mean, I've learned a whole plethora of things. But
a lot of what just happened there.
Yeah.
Boy, that is something. Honestly, what I've learned this week is that I'm pretty good at fantasy football. No. Good night, everybody. No.
That's it. Roll the credits. We're out of here.
See ya. No. Man, listen. What I've learned kind of off of what we just talked about with Jake Paul a little bit. Sports is all about entertainment. And almost every subject that we covered today is it for the betterment of competitive competition, or is it for the betterment of our entertainment? And as we talked about with the College Football Playoff, yeah, it's cool that you can get some deserving teams into the playoff, but if they don't stand a chance at competing to win, then it's not an entertaining product. The NFL yesterday, as they did last year, scheduled games against the College Football Playoff. And this year, they didn't even have to try to outdraw the College Football Playoff. You had crappy games from the College Football Playoff side of things. And Philadelphia, Washington, Green Bay, and Chicago, all they had to do was show up. And more people watch NFL football. And for a Saturday night where, the stakes are high. The winner moves on in the college football playoff. One of our lead stories was Caleb Williams and his pass to DJ Moore to close out that game. So it's all entertainment. Yes, boxing, it would be nice to see more equal competition, more fair competition. But the fact is, Jake Paul might be one of the smartest businessmen we have out there, whether you love him or not. The fact is, on a Friday night, he got people, even if he had to take the fall himself, which he did, and he needs to learn to put his guard up when things get in trouble. So he does have to, so his jaw can stay together. The fact is, more people watched Anthony Joshua Friday night than ever before here in the States. And Anthony Joshua became a bigger star. And in the sense of, when that next fight comes, if it does happen against Tyson Fury, that's going to be a mega fight because Anthony Joshua took the payday on weeks' notice from Jake Paul. So what I've learned this week is that no matter what sport we're talking about on this show, no matter what it is, the number one thing that matters the most, more than anything else, is the entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
I think these playoffs are going to be very entertaining, the NFL playoffs, because there's a lot of new teams, not a lot of new faces that's going to be in these playoffs. And I think that stuff is very interesting. So that is what I've learned just in scope in general. It's just another week where, you could talk about fairness, but at the end of the day, who's watching, who's being entertained and stuff.
Yeah.
So, that's what I got for what I've learned. We had promised to end this show before 11 o'clock, so we're going to uphold that promise.
That's right.
Tonight. Again, thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you tune in all of our programs on the Inside Edge Network at Inside Edge Net on all those platforms below: TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. We got a pregame show every Sunday through the Super Bowl. We're doing that. Jersey Chasers, they're doing a great job, of course. Illegal Formation. Myself and Kyle on Side Hustle Wrestling Podcast. And also the Fantasy Football podcast that we have, the Commissioner's Couch.
Right.
They do a great job with their show. They actually talked about Jacoby Brissett. They've actually helped me.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's crazy.
In certain ways. Actually, in another league, they talked about Blake Coral for the Rams. It's like, dude, you got to pick him up. He's starting to get more reps and stuff. And he had a monster game a few weeks ago and won that game. So because of that. So a lot of good stuff there. So make sure you check us out. If you don't hear from us again until Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that stuff. And that's it. I ain't got anything else to say, Eli.
That's it. For all you awesome human beings out there, remember, we have just about an hour left in our weekend. Enjoy it.
Real Talk with Papa Moon. Make sure you watch that too.
Yeah, that's right. Shout out Pops. You know what I'm saying? He's already getting his sleep ready for his Monday morning. But if you're still tuning in, make the most of your last hour on this Sunday. Gear up, get ready, because we got a big week. It's Christmas week. It's holiday week. It's dang near the end of 2025. So start setting your expectations in your mind for how you want 2026 to start and look.
For Rob Rozycki, Eli Moon, our entire team at the Inside Edge Network, I'm Double A Anthony Alford signing off. If you're still up, go to bed. You got to work in the morning.